This is Cold Start.
And another guest joining us here in what we're calling the Icebox now. I feel like the Cold Start Studio.
Yeah, I like that name. Our guest here today is a fellow I've known for a long time, and please join me in welcoming Tom Fathi.
Hey, well, thanks for having me. Didn't know I was doing this until about an hour ago, which is the best way to do it.
We're big believers in trial by fire around here.
Well, that's the point of our name, Cold Start, deep dive into motorsports. It's just straight into the deep end, right?
Well, here we are. I'm really excited. I don't know what we're going to talk about. It'll probably be cars, but maybe some other things. Love, laughter.
You know, wherever it takes us. Cars is the nominal topic that we're here to discuss. So we'll start with that and see where it takes us.
Sure.
All right.
Absolutely.
Well, Tom and I met a few years ago when he started putting on this car show up in the Pacific Northwest. Maybe you can tell us a little bit about the show, how you came up with the idea in the first place, how long did it take to come together, just that kind of stuff, background.
Yeah. Well, I was laying in bed one night. I was 15. It was October of my freshman year of high school. And, I was just thinking about cars, as we all do often when we're going to bed. And I was like, it'd be kind of cool to start a car show. The next morning, my parents were there and we were having breakfast. And I was like, want to start a car show? And they were like, cool. How the heck are you going to do that?
Right. Did they think you were going to use your own cars or you're going to?
They knew the kinds of cars I was into. I was playing Forza all day, every day. Had the Hot Wheels, which I'd only collected cool Hot Wheels in my opinion of, like a lot of Ferraris and Lamborghinis and Paganis and all those things. And
No PT Cruisers.
oh, there's some in there.
Oh, okay.
Just not
You
that
gotta
many.
you gotta have a good mixture, right?
Of course.
You gotta have cars you can destroy.
Exactly. And so they're like, how are you going to do that? I was like, I don't know, but I'm going to figure it out. And so life moves forward, and I texted a few friends. I was like, hey, do you want to do this with me? And they were like, okay. And so from there, I was like, where should I do it? Where should this happen? And I'd been to one car show before at a place called Caroline Point, which is a beautiful marina in Kirkland, Washington. And so I, just went online and was looked up Caroline Point property and tried to find the contact information. Couldn't find it. They just had the send us a request box. And so I put that in and, of course, did not hear anything back. After a few months, my mom just called them. And she was like, listen, my son wants to meet with you. Would you be willing to do that? He wants to host a car show. And they said yes. And so put on that white button down and went over there with my parents. And we walked in and I was, again, this was October of my freshman year of high school. So I really did not know what I was doing, but I knew that I had an idea. And we walked in and there was, a long mahogany table. It was their boardroom at the, it's a pretty nice place there. And we sit down in the high leatherback chairs and they're like, okay, what do you got? Made my pitch and it was just I want to host a small car show on your, parking lot that overlooks the marina and Lake Washington. And they were like, so is it going to be your friends' cars? I was like, oh, no, they're going to be nice cars. Okay, why not?
So did they have any insight into how you were going to go about actually accomplishing this? Or you just kind of said, yeah, we're going to put on a car show. We're going to bring you some cool cars and just let us do our work.
I had names of people that owned cars that they knew of.
Like prominent collectors or?
Sure, that I thought I could get at the time. In reality, if COVID hadn't happened, would not have been able to at all. But we'll get into that shortly of
Right.
kind of how things did eventually play out.
So you made your pitch
Yeah.
and said, we're going to have this event. Was there a time frame or a size of how many cars or what were the parameters?
Yeah, so, that lot, and I know it in my brain, it has 82 spaces. And obviously, you're not going to park cars. Normally in a space, you probably fit 60 or 70 cars, which I thought was an appropriate number to start with. It wasn't 500 or anything. And I gave them a few names of people that we wanted to get there. And this was in October or November, and we wanted to do it when this weather started to get nice in March.
Okay. So you had a couple of months lead time to kind of get this thing set up.
Exactly.
All right. And so what did it take from the idea in your head to turning it into a reality? What was that process like?
Well, it was, again, it was 15. How much do you actually know? I knew Instagram existed. So I'm like, okay, we're going to started the Instagram and just posted a few photos. And I remember went in there and the first post, it was this is who we are and this is our names. And we named out me and my buddy Henry and a few other people this, that. And so just started to promote it, would just direct message people on Instagram, be like, hey, this is what we're doing. We knew a few people, actually knew them, probably 5. And so we were going to I guess rely on that to make it all happen. And not long after this, we were gearing up for that first show. Probably had like 10 people that were going to come.
Hmm.
And then COVID happened
Oh, wow. So that got right in the middle of your plans.
in the best way possible.
How come?
A car show can happen with 10 cars, but is it actually good with 10 cars? I mean, it could have been good. But basically, what happened was, looking back, hindsight is 2020, would not have played out the way it did with how many people we knew at that point. And I think our experience too. And so COVID happened, and we kept thinking the show was going to be able to happen. It kept getting pushed off, blah, blah, blah. We're like, okay, we need some promotional material. Let's host a photo shoot. Let's get some cool cars on the property because there's nothing going on the property, and take some photos to use to promote it more. And our logo had a Carrera GT, which I just slapped on some random logo creator. I have no idea what even it was. And it was a yellow Carrera GT, or the outline of a Carrera GT. We're like, well, we got to have a Carrera GT there.
Setting the bar really low for your first photo shoot.
Yeah, absolutely.
Setting up for success. I see.
Yeah. And so I actually had met a guy who had a silver Carrera GT. And I was like, oh, okay, I'll just message him. And he was like, okay, maybe. And we had some other cars coming, and things fell through with this Carrera GT that we wanted to have come.
Those owners are pretty flaky, I got to say.
Yeah.
They seem like selective individuals.
Selective, weird, different, odd, protective.
Exactly.
Yeah, all the above.
And so we had a McLaren 600 LT coming to this photo shoot, a 1-of-1 white 360 Challenger Dolly, and and then the FLTDF.
Oh, yeah.
And so we had these 3 cars lined up, and we're like, okay, this will be cool. But we still, no Carrera GT. Damn it.
It's on your logo.
It's on our logo.
How can you represent with authenticity if you don't have the car that's on your logo at the show?
Might be easier to redesign the logo than find a
Exactly.
CGT.
I don't know.
So we had started to see, my buddies and I, on Instagram, this new black Carrera GT in the area. Literally 2 or 3 days before the photo shoot. You're just on Instagram and you come across things. I came across this Instagram account called anti_PDK.
Sounds like a shady character.
And I was like, you know what? Screw it. And so I just direct messaged this guy, and I was like, hey, here's a photo of your car, and we're doing this photo shoot, and it looks like you have this other car, and we'd love to have you. And this person, I'm pretty sure, just responded and said, cool, why not? I'll be there.
It's really funny, too, because most people, I'll just admit that was me, are super wary about these things, myself included. And there was just something about the vibe of what you had presented to me, because I think there was some more conversation that had happened there, which made me feel more like this isn't some random internet stalker who's going to ask you to go to some parking lot where they're going to come and take your car from you, but rather there's an event that's being put together here that sounds like it makes sense. And it turns out that I had known one of the other owners of, I think it was the 600 LT. So getting to talk to people, hearing that this sounds like this is probably a legitimate thing. And the other thing to call out is there's sort of like a big incumbent car show in this area that had been going for a long time and was pretty well organized, but has really become a scene, right? I mean, literally people lined up for hours before the show so they can get a good spot. And people who'd come to this show because they knew all these fancy cars were there from pretty far away just to come do it. So the scale of it made something to people like me to feel like not very attractive. Like I didn't want to go be part of the zoo. I've been at those kind of car shows and you go home and your car's got handprints all over it and people do all kinds of things that aren't appropriate because they don't know how to conduct themselves. So I remember hearing about your proposal, which was this new show, and we haven't yet called out the name of it, Northwest Exotics at Carillon Point in Kirkland, Washington. And this show was going to be by invitation only. The cars that would be at this show would not just be anybody who shows up or drives out from wherever and gets in line first, but rather you were going to curate this collection. And that got me interested because I said, oh, well, at least it's not just any comers can kind of just bring something and we'll be hanging out and going through that whole experience again. It was a matter of having there be a selected group of people and trying to manage the size. This isn't a huge space. You said 82 spaces or whatever. This other show that was going on was like hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of cars in this, effectively this outdoor mall type of environment, which I didn't really gravitate to. So I think it was the way you had presented the place where this was happening, the size and the nature of this meetup that made it sound different than the others. So I said, sure, I'll go ahead and give it a shot.
Yeah. And so I remember telling my buddies that we were doing that with and that there was going to be a Carrera GT, and they just flipped. And then that morning, we had, a little section of the parking lot sectioned off, and thus came those 4 cars, and was the birth of what has become a major, major part of my life, which is Northwest Exotics.
That's cool. And it was you and a couple of friends. You mentioned Henry.
Yeah.
And so were you kind of a consortium? Did you make decisions together? Were you sort of like the lead troublemaker and you kind of set the direction and they mostly followed? What was that structure like?
Yeah. Yeah. So it was just kind of, it was going to be just a collaborative effort to bring together cool cars. And so we'd gotten to start with this photo shoot and with Mr. Todd and a few other people, but it was still COVID. And we didn't have our first show for 10 more months after that.
Yeah, I remember there was this like moving target that kept getting pushed out and pushed out because we didn't know when we'd be allowed to do this stuff or what the protocol would be around them or anything like that. So it was kind of, you put the stake in the ground, we're going to do this. And then it was a matter of just like, hurry up and wait.
Yeah. We were out and about starting to get to know more people, and we're like, okay, we can't host a car show, but maybe we could do something else. We had the photo shoot. Maybe we should do a drive. We were like, okay, seems like a lot of people like to drive to Leavenworth, which is about a 2.5 hour drive away over a cool mountain pass. We're like, screw it. Let's put together a drive.
For those who don't know, outside of Washington, Leavenworth generally means a prison in Kansas. If you're in the state of Washington, Leavenworth is a cute little tourist town that's been built up like a Bavarian village. So all the buildings have that sort of Germanic look to them. There's a bunch of beer houses and places you can go buy a brat or a pretzel, that kind of thing. And it's a tourist spot in the middle of Washington where generally nobody else would go for any other reason.
So it'd be a cool spot to take a bunch of good-looking cars, aesthetic photos, a nice afternoon.
Precisely. And so we got together a group of 11 or 12 cars, which it was a good group of cars. It was, a Lambo Murcielago, a few McLarens, the Carrera GT, of course, and a few Porsches.
I remember a couple of Audi R8s in the group too.
Yes, indeed.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. And I remember also at the same time still being wary about this. Okay, we're just going to go to a drive to this place I've never been in Washington. But something that really had impressed me was, so I didn't know you personally. I know you as one of this consortium of people putting on this event called Northwest Exotics that hadn't yet happened, but we had the photo shoot for. I met a couple of the other car owners who showed up for this photo shoot, and we got talking. We're like, wow, these guys really seem like they're doing this well. This is a super cool venue, way cooler than the other car shows that are around. They seem really organized. I remember getting I don't know if it was a handwritten, but like a thank you note from you guys for having shown up for this photo shoot, for having made the vision a reality of having this car that's in our logo actually be at the photo shoot, so that you put together these materials. I remember you did this like professionally printed photo card thing that you had made, thank you notes and invitations out of. So I was like, oh, these guys are on another level compared to some of these other car shows that are around that are just like catch as catch can, whoever's around. So, oh, they're going to go out on a drive today, and I happen to know one or two of the other people going on this drive. Seems like it might be a fun time. Let's go.
yeah. So we all gather, and I remember it so vividly. It was a very foggy morning in Seattle. It was pretty dark actually, and we're in this parking lot, and my side of things, it was like very chaotic. Again, set it up, but not really knowing what I'm doing or what we're doing as a group. And we didn't even have really a route. We had a rough route, but we didn't have like this turn then, this turn now, like any of that. We're just gonna drive to Leavenworth.
Put it on Apple Maps. Everyone just follow one
Yeah.
another.
And
Right.
so we all gather. I remember we got a few like coffee things for, people to, get a little bit of drip coffee out of, and then off we went. And I remember my buddies and I were hanging out of cars, taking photos of the cars because we were all car photographers. And so we were just eating that up, cool cars together on the road. And we started to make our way out of the city limits, and the fog started to go away. And we got to the foothills of the Cascade Mountains, and it was sun and no clouds.
Great driving weather. I mean, cold day. Cars love the cold, but not so cold that you had traction problems, right? The sun had broken through the clouds. It's a really beautiful scene. I mean, Cascade Mountains are really, really impressive.
Yeah. And so here we're going out, and this guy in a black Carrera GT just flew by the car I was in, definitely going 60.
Definitely at legal speeds, yes.
Right at 60 miles an hour. And we just cruised our way on over, had a few pit stops, and then we took a few back roads once we got after Leavenworth, after our lunch stop, and I ended up in a GT3 for the second part of the day. And I was just telling Todd earlier, I still to this day say that was the best day of my life, because that opened my eyes to the other side of cars, which is that feeling that it gives you inside,
Being in the car
being in the car.
and driving it through this sort of scenery in a group of people who are all there to kind of do it together.
Hearing, seeing, feeling was like nothing else. And so I was in a 997.1 Porsche GT3. So a good family friend who had it, and it was a kind of little more setup for the track, and he had an exhaust on it. And so for the second half of the day, we were behind and in front of Todd in the Carrera GT. And so being in there with the Mesger engine and then behind the Carrera GT on a perfect day on back roads, it was really special.
Yeah, it was a really fun time. I remember meeting some people that I actually had never met before and like have kept up with on that day. It was a good group, nobody was really trying to be too rowdy or drive in a way that you want to distance yourself from those people. We've all been on those drives where there's the guy who keeps crossing the double yellow and like times when it's questionable judgment to be doing that, right? So this was a good group, pretty well behaved, and a really cool set of cars rolling together and looked like it was pretty organized from what I knew. I mean, I was just out there to have a good time too, but it seemed like a well organized kind of drive.
Yeah, I mean, I can't even imagine. I'm assuming at this point you're still 15, 16,
Yeah.
maybe 16.
Yeah.
But yeah, thinking about being young and a car enthusiast, I mean, before you have your license, you can only really appreciate cars for their looks, right? As they sit in a parking lot or looking through magazines, DuPont registry, whatever it is. But then this being that kind of first experience for you to see cars in motion and obviously why these vehicles are built. Yes, they're beautiful and they're gorgeous to look at and they're pieces of art in their own rights, but the other piece of the engineering is to drive them and that sensation of experiencing the sounds and the feel and all that stuff. Like really, really cool for you to be able to position yourself in that sort of awakening, if we can
Mhm.
call it that, into automotive culture. Now, as we fast forward and we get into, you put on your first car show, we finally get to what the organization is supposed to be all about. Now, my question is, asking the way that you formatted it, because it sounds like you were curating the vehicles that were going to be there. Now, were these events that you were putting on, was it open to the public? Like, could people come? It just was like, yeah, you park off to the side and you come appreciate these amazing cars? Or what was that format like that kind of differentiated yourself from those other Northwest meets?
Yeah, so we get to our first show. It's June of 2021. And at this point, I'd got to know more people. And, people know people. And so we're like, okay, we're going to be able to get some cars. There'd been a really cool serendipitous moment where my dad happened to get a new job. And he walked out of his office. We were still all at home because of COVID. And he goes, yeah, so this lady that I work with, apparently her husband owns some carbon fiber GT. And I was like, whoa, wait, time out. You're telling me that your new coworker, her husband owns the fully exposed carbon fiber 4GT that just got delivered to Seattle. He's like, I don't know. It's like, okay, well, I think I do know. And
It's like you're saying a lot of really good keywords here. Carbon fiber, GT.
yes.
This got to be good.
And for clarification, my dad knows nothing about cars. And so coming up to this first show, obviously we knew Todd, we knew some other people we'd known, but there was this new person who I'd known of this car collection, didn't know who it was or anything. And turns out my dad now works with this guy's wife. And so
That's a pretty good in.
yeah, and just so serendipitous of just how that worked out. The timing, it was literally a month and a half before the show, and we ended up getting in contact, and he was like, yeah, like, cool, I can't make it, but my collection manager will bring the Ford GT. And so, and again, 16 years old, this first show's happening in our star spot, which is still the star spot. We have a black Carrera GT.
Thank you very much.
Yes. And the next spot is the first made, fully exposed carbon fiber Ford GT that got delivered to him a few months before. And it was a sunny day. The water was popping, and we had 42 cars, I think. And so we'd gotten to a point where we'd had just enough cool cars and just enough cars where I think people thought we were legit.
Yeah, at the point at which you're talking to somebody and they say, let me talk to my collection manager.
Yeah.
You just crossed some threshold, right? I was talking with a friend one time and he was speaking of his group of cars, or I think his family owned, and he kept referring it to as the collection. And I thought, man, that sounds like really pretentious. I don't know what you're doing or why you're talking about it that way. And then he actually took me to this nondescript warehouse in an industrial park out in like East Bellevue, Washington. And then he opened the door and I realized why he called it the collection, because it was unlike anything I'd ever seen in the flesh, right? Modern era Formula One cars, fully intact engine on a stand, one-off cars that were owned by famous car people and famous other people, coach made just by specialist coach maker for Ferrari, stuff like that. I'm like, oh, when you say the collection, I now know what that means. So if you said collection manager, you know you're in for something good.
Yeah, I mean, this space and dealing with big exotic collections or private collections or very expensive collections of
Mm-hmm.
cars, we're not just talking about enthusiasts with a decent garage. We're talking about big sums of money. That space just seems like so particular in how you have to tiptoe your way
Yes.
through. And to start a car show, like that was even a big undertaking as your first thing to do in the automotive space of, yeah, I would probably have started with like a car meet, invite a couple of my buddies, see what it turns into. But
Right.
taking on the challenge of curating a car show as a teenager is just unbelievable. And so, first car show goes off, everything's beautiful. Was there a lot of people that showed up? Was it mainly just the car owners? What was that sort of outreach like?
Well, this is something that's kind of played out, I think, really well, of the fact that by nature, all we have is an Instagram. There's no other form of promotion besides that and word of mouth. And so that first show is, I'd say, mainly just the owners. And it went well. I mean, on the back end, as someone who runs it, you see all the bad things. And there was a million things. I was like, want to fix that in the future. And we have tweaked it a lot. But it was really intimate. And we've kind of it's grown a lot over the years. But there's still it's not a mainstream thing. And there's like this core group of people that come together. And obviously that core group has grown. But it started from this just curated thing and curated, it is by nature exclusive. But I like to make it clear that I don't, and in no way do I look down on any. The cars that come to the event are just cars that I'm interested in. That's all it is, right? That make me happy.
Yeah. Well, it started as your personal passion. So
Exactly.
why not follow that with what I like?
Exactly. And it's cool, like now as my passion has changed and how like the cars have changed, but we'll get into that. So anyways, it was a really small thing at the beginning. We had it was 42 cars and there was probably about 100 people there. And that was it.
Yeah. So I remember showing up to this thing and being like, I could bring a friend along. That would be kind of cool. So is this word of mouth, almost whisper net? The people who knew about this thing maybe told another person, but it wasn't broadcast to the world, to contrast from some of those other events that were actively out there doing marketing to trying to get new people to show up at their car show for whatever benefits it had. This felt intimate. It felt kind of private. It felt like if you're in the know, you can show up at this thing and it's a pretty good time.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
with this, I mean, inviting these people out, you kind of touched on it, like this was your passion. You just wanted to bring cars together that you're interested in of, hey, I want to check these out. And if I can convince these people to bring them to one location, there's a lot of self-fulfillment that comes out of that. But as this starts to grow or as it continues, right, you run your first event. I'm sure there was a massive high with that of, I need to do this again. And how many more cars can I get? And what else can I achieve? But is that still the same focus of just, I just want to put this thing on because it's something fun, it's kind of a hobby? Or was it something of, I want to create something that's going to be able to get bigger? I don't know if like car shows or anything, like, is there monetization with that? Can you bring in sponsors? What was the sort of mindset as it started to develop?
Yeah, it was pure cars as it started.
Mhm.
And I can say in complete confidence now, coming up on 5 years later, that's exactly how it still is. I have not made a cent off that car show. I don't want to.
Very cool.
It is just because I really, really like cars.
And you just wanted to create something within your
Yeah,
community.
and I'm pretty extroverted. I love people. And so it's become this amazing mix of bringing people together from all walks of life who come together and share a shared passion. And it's cliche to say, but being able to put that on for people and the effects that has had and how it's grown and how, like my parents, they were out on a walk the other night and they came across some kids taking photos of cars and they knew about my car show. It's like, holy crap. It's wild. There was a lady once who drove 1,000 miles from Denver to bring, she originally lived in Seattle, moved away, drove back. Todd didn't need to spend the money to ship the LMP3 car to the show, but was so gracious to do that. And it's just an amazing thing. And right, they're just objects, but they are so much more than that. They're living pieces of art that you can drive and experience and feel inside of you. It's just, they really, really mean a lot to me because of the people I've got to meet through them and the life they have. This just passion has created for me. I mean, I was telling Todd, like, what did I write about my college application? The car show. Like, it's all cars. Every single time I meet someone, they ask me anything about myself. I don't necessarily say I host a car show. I'm like, love cars. And you know how many cool things have just sprouted from that? Because so many people have so many touch points with cars in their lives, even if they're not a car person. Oh, my dad had a 65 Mustang that he loved dearly, and now I have that. Or I'm that guy, unfortunately, when I'm on a plane ride. I love striking up conversations with the people next to me. Always. And probably
You're
on the...
my worst nightmare.
Yeah, I'm sorry. But
I put in earbuds next to people next to you.
probably the last 6 out of the last 8 flights, I've talked almost the entire flight between LA and Seattle with the person next to me. And it always stems from a conversation about me. I always start, obviously, ask them about themselves, and then it comes back. I'm like, I love cars. And half of those, there's some connection that they have to cars. And it's like, it's just a thing, but it sparks so much in people. And it has just expanded my world in so many ways. I'm now down at Loyola Marymount University in LA, studying business entrepreneurship. And I just kind of, I didn't know what the word entrepreneurship was when I started this car show. And it's not a business, so it's not exactly like true entrepreneurship in my mind, but doing your own thing and just that fulfillment that can come with that, and seeing that other side of it, and seeing how there can be a business side to that. And, you know, I now run our entrepreneurship society at our school, and we bring in like nearly weekly guest speakers, and brought in the co-founder and CEO of Snapchat, Evan Spiegel. And just, right, this all came from cars. That's the only reason I'm saying this. It's wild. And so my world has expanded in so many ways just because of cars.
Yeah, it winds up being this common element, right? Because most people, I mean, if you grew up in the US, like you've at least ridden around in cars. You need them to get where you're going in most locations. You may have developed an affinity or an attraction to certain types of cars, but all different types are out there. There's all different subsets, any different way you want to slice or dice this. It seems like there's a place for somebody to find a space somewhere in this, or at least to relate to it, even if they're not so super passionate about it as you are.
Totally.
Yeah, so I asked that question because I was so fascinated of how much time and energy and passion you've really put towards this project, business, whatever you want to call it. I mean, I feel like none of those terms really encapsulate it for you of what this show means to you.
Mm-hmm.
But just to see someone put in all of that energy of just for the sake to do it, for I love this community, I love this culture. And yeah, within cars, there is so many subcultures. There's so many different facets of vintage, modern, exotics, tuners, modified, track cars, stance cars, all these different subsets that exist, which I'm sure exotics in the Northwest is mainly focused on exotics. So I want to ask you, growing up, it sounded like you didn't really grow up in a family that was interested in cars whatsoever. So what sparked that interest? What sparked this fire of a passion that grew into what is now this amazing show in the Pacific Northwest? And what attracted you to exotics? Because obviously it seems like that's kind of where the bookmark fell in regards to culture, or in regards to subcategories of cars.
Yeah. Well, you know, the story my mom loves to tell is that when I was getting potty trained, my reward was a Hot Wheel. And so from the age of being very, very young, started to have Hot Wheels around, and I, you know, have many memories of playing with Hot Wheels with my brother. And I'm going to be completely honest. I'm 20 years old. I still have Hot Wheels set up on my ground, on my floor, in my room that I play with still. That's how much I love cars.
I like this.
Yeah.
So Hot Wheels were like the pivotal point.
Yes.
Early on in your life, developed the reward sensation of good things equal cars.
Yeah.
So that correlation happens. Now, I mean,
There was a switch. There was a switch to the real world.
Did you have a favorite? Was there one that you got that was like, this is the holy grail of all the collection?
There was two very, very early on. There was one red one that kind of looks like an Aston Martin 177 body shape, and then another one that looks like, no one is even going to know what this car is because there's only one of them, but it's a Ford. It was a one-of-one Ford built in the late 30s or early 40s for Edsel Ford. And it's not that car, but it's a car that looks a lot like it. It's like called like the Model 40 Special Roadster or something like that. Anyways, there was these two cars that, like, you asked that question, those are the two that come to my mind.
Mm-hmm.
After that, though, vivid memory of, it was probably 2012, so I was probably 8, and the Lamborghini Aventador was released. And there was this ad that they did of the orange Lamborghini Aventador driving through, obviously like CGI, but like through this like big desert scape. And there's all these like things protruding out of the ground, like coming at it, and it's like slicing and dicing and driving in between it. And it's like just like that raw audio of the Aventador.
Mm-hmm.
And so that compounding with Hot Wheels, and then this family friend when I was in 6th grade, so probably age 12, who started showing me photos from a car show in Seattle. And so he was like, actually, Italian Day is happening in a few weeks. You should go. And my mom...
So this is like a themed car show for Italian cars?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
And my mom takes me and my brother. And so the first real car show I went to, there was a one-of-one Blue LaFerrari, Ferrari Enzo, 599 GTO, an F12 TDF, all this stuff. It's dumping rain. In a Series 2 Ferrari 250 GTO in the dumping rain at my first real car show.
That left a mark.
Yes, it did.
Yeah.
And so after that's my story. I say up to that point. After that, the rest is history.
It's true. I mean, to be able to see those kinds of things all in one place is a pretty special thing. And especially when, the reputation of Ferrari owners is, they don't take them out in the rain.
Totally. And so, and the fact that there was one guy who had his whole collection out, and seeing a 250 GTO in the rain, I was in 6th grade, and that LaFerrari, of course, because, and so that goes back to your question. That was what drew me into those kinds of cars. And so now, that Hot Wheels collection has just spun into only cars that I really like, which was like modern exotics. That is now shifted back in time really fast with the cars that I really am into, which is mostly classic cars now.
Classic from what era?
I'm going to say 70s and back to like 30s.
Oh, so even older classics.
Yeah, I was going to say, like, it was going to be interesting of your generation comparative to our generations of where we go to of like what is considered old cars. We're going to laugh if you're going to say like 2010s.
Yeah, right, exactly.
So now you like vintage stuff.
Yeah, on that point exactly. Another, there's so many different side stories of this, this passion also was really spurred on like me taking photos of cars. Started on iPod Touch, and now that's my main source of income right now is taking photos of cars. But I think that visual thing and taking photos and looking for how cars look good, and from a young age, or, from like when this was really starting to take off, this passion, completely a visual guy for cars. And so it's funny. So, like LaFerrari, that's very visually, aesthetically pleasing. And that's kind of like where this show started with all these modern exotics. But if you go and look at photos of like each show at each date across the years, you'll see more and more old cars appearing. And so 2021, and so it was my first go to the Quail and stuff, which was just, crazy bonkers. I even got to go and see all these cool cars. And Pagani is my favorite company. It's right, again, the most visually, aesthetically pleasing modern car, in my opinion. And Todd just saw outside my license plate is Zonda. And so we're at Monterey Car Week at my first Pebble Beach Concours Elegance, which I've heard is the best car show in the world. Show up and saw old cars. What the hell is this? I don't know what I'm looking at all. And I had a good buddy who was a bit older, and he was like, "You have no idea what you're looking at. Let me show you what you're looking at."
Oh, you haven't developed taste
Precisely.
in cars.
That's right.
And so all we did, we just walked around the entire lawn and looked at the emblems on cars. He's like, "This is what we're going to do. We're just going to look at emblems." Go around. I'm like, "Oh. Well, this is kind of cool." I kind of like peep in a few interiors too and be like, wow, like these are really nice. And like, obviously like very much so hand built, and they're all very unique. Huh. Okay. And then he's like, yeah, this car's worth like $40-50 million. Oh, that's a lot of money. And so that was the introduction to classic cars. And I don't really know, it just started to build as, I got further into this world, especially in Seattle, where it's a lot of older money too. And so guys who have the money, they don't really want to buy a Pagani. They have no interest in that. They want $70 million Ferrari.
Mm-hmm.
Microsoft guys. And so
wine collectors,
big time. So there's a lot of classic cars. There's a lot of really, really special classic cars in Seattle. And good segue of how this kind of plays into the show. It was our 5th show ever. And that was the first show that had like some older cars at it. I was like, wow, these are really cool cars. They sound cool. They look really good. They look good next to each other too. Old car and old car. And like I remember we parked this DB4 GT next to a Maserati 3500 GT body by Vignali. And they both have these like thin little like fins on the back. Not prominent fins like a big Cadillac, but like, they share these similarities, but they're from 2 different countries around the similar time, but very different cars. And anyways, flash forward to like one of our past shows that wanted to do an Italian day or do my own Italian day, and screw the modern cars. There are some cool modern Ferraris around here, but the classic Ferraris in Seattle are insane. Like genuinely, we have some of the coolest classic Ferraris on planet Earth that never come out, ever. And I'm lucky enough now to be connected to these collection managers who, are just a phone call away. And they've come to the show like you, and they see that it's not this huge thing. There's not people doing a bunch of dumb things there, knock on some wood. It's just there to appreciate cars.
What do you think is the motivation for people who, let's say you're a collection manager for something like that, to put those cars out in the public or make them available in the right contexts to share? Is it ultimately that it's just too cool not to share with other people, or is there some other motivation that's at play there?
It's a really interesting question, because a few of these collections, they're big gun cars. They still don't let out to the show that I host, because those cars, in their minds, can only be seen at very certain shows, which I understand. But the draw, I think it's the same draw that I have for hosting it, which is you create an opportunity for someone to get that experience and make a memory that has a lasting impact, like it had on me. And I know that for a fact of this collection manager who I'm speaking of from this collection, who brings cars out, and that's what he voices to me. He's like, you were doing something really cool because you are just creating a space for people to come and enjoy really cool things. But I'm really lucky to have an amazing location to do it at. They don't charge me anything. I just get to do it there. Like it's like a very much so a pinch me moment. And to now be in this position where these people I can dial up at any time and they will bring out some of the world's literally coolest cars. Like we had the 10th Ferrari ever built last year. That's crazy.
And these are cars that are one of one cars.
Yeah.
The history makes them just, that's the only one.
Yeah.
That's the only one that exists. And
Yeah.
to be in your position to be able to convince or have the connections with people to bring these cars out, and not just for yourself, right?
Yeah.
I mean, there is a personal benefit, but also to bring them to your show to where they're exposed to other people must feel like a pretty good power that you have.
Well, it's just, and like I said, there is a way to monetize this. It can very easily charge, blah, blah, blah. That's not what I'm here to do. It's a free space. Literally anyone can come. It is a big thing. Even $25 or $50, it's a lot of money to some people. And that's a limiting factor. And so a lot of these cars, they do come out to like Pebble Beach, but you pay $500. It's Pebble
Right.
Beach, so of course. But like, it's creating a place where people get to do it for free. And so like, we have an upcoming show in 2 weeks, and I was trying to think of like, okay, what could be a cool theme that's not cliche? And I was like, oh, well, I know some people who have a lot of cars that have been on the lawn at Pebble Beach. So why don't I just have a group of cars as the featured cars that have all been on the lawn? And so right now, and we pray it's not going to rain, all these different things, because that's always a major thing in Seattle. It's like such a diverse and unique group of cars that are allegedly going to be coming if it doesn't rain. From a BMW 2002 Turbo that's been on the lawn, which you would never think about that car being on the lawn, to a McLaren M6A that Bruce McLaren won a championship in, to some classic Bugattis, some classic Bentleys. Just gets me going. Those older cars, especially. And to what you were just saying, the stories behind them, so much more interesting. Still love a Lamborghini Huracan. That's where the passion started. But that car, it does have a story. It's the story of Lamborghini, but that car doesn't have a story, right?
Right.
Yeah, for me, and I'll say this with sort of some reservation, but like anybody with money can go to a dealership and buy a car, right? I mean, like nothing makes you special because you bought a thing. Ultimately, at the end of the day, like, okay, you proved or you showed off to other people that you had the money to go do a thing. But aside from that, there's no differentiation there. There's no uniqueness there. I think these cars that are special because of the story, because of where they were, who owned them, how they were used, that makes them so much more interesting and much more collectible in that way, much
Right.
more of something that you'd seek out and you'd really want to go take your time out to go and see those specific cars versus, you can go to the car dealership and see all the latest models of, Ferrari or whatever.
Yeah. And it's also, especially with my generation, the passion is nearly dead for classic cars. No one knows what they're looking at. No one cares. And I guess I get it because I was that person up until pretty recently. So that's another reason why I want to get these cars out.
Yeah.
Because they're around right now. The owners are still around. Let's share them while we can and try to help this passion be revived in these younger generations. It's also like those cars. I had the privilege of riding off the lawn at Pebble Beach this past year in one of these collectors, his Maserati 450S, which is only 10 of in the world. It's an old Maserati race car. And that thing is crazy. We're tamely driving off the lawn, but then we get to the road to go back to the polo fields, and the dude driving it just yams on the gas. We go sideways, revs all the way up. And it's just like this wave of just like the coolest feeling of all time. And we're laughing, giggling, high-fiving after. Like, that's special. That's not something, like new cars definitely have that, but that rawness that a classic car has, especially a classic race car,
Yeah.
that both Sterling Moss and Fangio drove and won in. It's just crazy. It makes you also appreciate, and it's something that very few people get to experience, but riding that and then realizing that the people drove those cars for 12, 24 hours through the rain, the dark, all these things, and then did them at the speeds they did them at, it's impressive.
When racing was dangerous.
Yeah, very much so. And, I've looked at cars a lot throughout my life.
Mhm.
And so it's kind of, I go to Monterey Car Week every year now, and it's so cool. And you do unfortunately get a little bit jaded. I still, the passion for cars has only greatly increased. But, when you see 10 918s drive by you, it's like, okay, there's 10 of them. And so, I've seen a lot of stuff, and it's like I feel like I want to start experiencing the differences between cars and why people like certain cars.
Yeah. It's one of those things where I think as car enthusiasts, we can appreciate people actually using the things that they have versus treating them like museum property or some art that they keep up on the wall that never gets to see light of day.
Absolutely. Yeah. And on that note, I mean, there's so many special stories that have come from this. I was sitting in AP Stats my senior year of high school. I'm sitting next to this random girl, And of course, I brought up cars, as I always do, and I always have stickers on my water bottle. And so that always starts some conversation as well of cars. And actually, on the other side, too, it's fully exposed carbon fiber GT that was the first supercar I ever got to drive, too, which was super cool. That's another story. And we're sitting there, her and I, and we talk about cars, and she's like, oh, my dad used to work on cars. And that could mean a lot of things. It's like, oh, like, no way. And she goes, yeah. She goes, do you know who John Shirley is? I was like, whoa, like, absolutely, but how do you know who that is? That's like, no one just knows who John Shirley is. Just collects cars and has won Pebble Beach a few times. But I was like, yeah, like, how do you know who John Shirley is? She was like, oh, my dad used to work on his cars back at Pete Lovely Racing. And Pete Lovely was a kind of iconic racer and figure in the Northwest car community a long time ago. It's like, wow, that's really cool. And she's like, yeah, he rebuilt the front end of John's 166mm, which is that 10th Ferrari ever built. That then years later came to my show. And that's stuff like that. It literally gives me chills. Like I just got chills. Like it's so small world and it's really special. And she was like that job meant so much to my dad. Her and her dad have come to the show a few times and it means a lot. And her mom unfortunately passed away from lung cancer recently. And I got her a candle or a candle holder or vase or whatever those are called.
Mm-hmm.
And I got it to match the color as close as I could to the 166 because that was how our relationship started. And she's just a friend, and I got that for her. I'm like, this is to commemorate your mom and the car that started our friendship.
See, that's really cool. Like how cars can bring people together. Like that's what all this is about. I mean, so many people look at car enthusiasts of like, oh, you just like to waste gas and kill the environment. It's like, no, there's so much more than that. And people don't take the time to understand no, this is just a commonality to bring people together. And it's so special and powerful because of that. It's not necessarily about the money. It's not about the assets. It's not about the material item of the car, but what it does.
Yeah.
And what it does to bring us together.
It's amazing how many of these things are the connective tissue, right, of what we call car culture, or automotive enthusiast culture. These things that are the shared experiences or the connection points that bring people together. It's really an amazing thing.
So you're in college right now, going to school for business, entrepreneurship.
Yeah.
You have this car show going on. So what does all this look like post-graduation? I mean, what's next?
Well, so I'm hosting a show on June 1st. It'll be a normal show, like I mentioned, with that Pebble Beach group of cars, and that'll be my 10th show I've done there. But earlier this year, like, okay, been doing this for a few years. It's like, how do I want this to play out in the future, like you're saying? I told Todd I was raised to whatever you do, you try to be your best at whatever you do. Or you just do your best and try to be the best. I'm like, okay, the show is cool, but it needs to be a lot better. And I'm in LA, which is the center for American car culture. A lot of things going on there. A lot of cool entities that have cool cars and do really cool things with cars. So this August, I want to make Seattle the West Coast destination. It'll be the week after Car Week, so the 23rd and the 24th. Saturday evening, we're doing an event at a certain collector's house, who I can't say the name here, but let's just say his property is mental, about 3 acres. This collector has a beautiful collection at his house and lots of different terraces where you can park cars and all these grounds that you can do cool things in, and it's on the water. So we're going to be doing a Saturday evening private event at this house and the Sunday morning big public event at Caroline Point. And I don't know how it's all going to play out. Obviously, the Peterson has committed some cars, still working out what those will be. There's been a lot of other small world connections where this is just crazy, right? I'm sitting one day wearing a Pagani shirt. I walk up to someone who's like an advisor to me for Entrepreneurship Society at Loyal Marymount. She goes, oh, Pagani. She's not a car person. She goes, when I was in grad school, the CEO of Pagani or something came to speak to my class. I'm like, whoa, that's crazy. Like, that's really random. She goes, yeah, I forget the professor who brought him in. She looks it up. She goes, oh, it's Professor Wagner. I go, huh. We're bringing him in for Entrepreneurship Society's speaker tonight. She goes, oh, I'll have to go make this connection for you. 2 hours later, we're standing there with him, and she's like, hey, like, Tom is really into cars, likes Pagani. It's like, oh, yeah, like, my buddy Michael, he runs Pagani America. He's the CEO of Pagani America. He goes, he's actually coming to speak in my class. He's flying in 2 weeks. You should come. 2 weeks later, I'm in there. It's a random graduate level marketing class, 15 people in there, 7:30 p.m. on a Tuesday. I didn't actually sit in the back. I sit in the front. I do that a lot because I like to be engaged. I stay after class. I was like, hey, this is what I do. He said the same exact thing. He goes, what do you want, a car? It's like, yeah. He goes, okay.
So what are you going to get from Pagani?
I don't know. So we're trying to work that out.
So big things in the works, right?
Yeah,
you're still making connections. The show is still growing. Bigger and better things on the horizon. I mean, this network that you've built, it's going to present yourself with some amazing opportunities moving forward, whether that has to do with your show
Mm-hmm.
or something
Mm-hmm.
else, right? And I mean, being in LA is the perfect place to be to continue to network and build something big. So it'll be awesome to see one, the show grow and the amazing things that you have going on for this summer, but then also what you're going to be able to turn all this networking into. It sounds like you're in a great position to continue to surround yourself with cars.
I'm tickled. I feel very lucky. It's so fun. I'm just, again, like I'm following what I love for right now. This is not something I want to do for my work as my main thing because it's such a great passion that I
Yeah.
want to protect. So I don't know what I want to do. I'm studying entrepreneurship. I'd love to continue to do my own thing, whether that be start a business or something. But just for right now, especially this summer, I'm just leaning into cars and doing what I love.
A very important question here is, did you mention your license plate to Michael from Pagani?
Of course.
Okay.
What was his thoughts?
He was like, oh, cool. He didn't really care.
Oh, all right. I thought it was just
Yeah.
like, take it away. It's like, you're not allowed to do that.
I thought I'd say like, oh, well, we just need to get to do something proper to put that license
Yeah.
plate on. Right.
Oh, what?
Yeah.
Well,
No,
think about if you brought a Zonda and you could put your Zonda plate on the Zonda
That- oh.
at the show. Boom. Big idea.
I would love to make that happen.
It's
I
these
mean, I don't
kind
have
of-
a Zonda. I can't make that happen for
But
you.
I
But
could also
sorry.
make that happen.
Yeah, I can't help with that either. But
So yeah, it's exciting. I want to try to just continue to improve things. My goal is to host the best car show Seattle's ever seen. When that happens, I don't know. It's not my goal in life. It's just a goal that I want to do because it's something that I care about.
yeah, well, when you put good things out there, sometimes you don't even need to know fully what your end goal is, but good things attract other good things. So it's awesome that you're bringing this really positive energy to a space that needs more of it, bringing passion without it sort of getting clouded by the commercial side of things. Not that there's not value in that, but you're staying true to that spirit of what you initially created and you've kept it going all this long.
Yeah.
Pretty
So
cool.
it's exciting. And this show that I'm trying to do in August or this weekend of events, it's now inevitable that I'm going to have to get some sponsors to help pay for things. Because like the Peterson, I just need to help with costs, right? And I get that. I don't expect things to happen for free. So, but it's a great learning experience. Figuring this out, how to do it, setting up an LLC. I would rather actually set up a nonprofit for this, but there's many more, things to just take care of with that. Setting up a board, all these things that I just don't know how to do, but it's a great way to learn.
That's awesome. That helps sort of exercise the things that you're learning in school without necessarily turning that passion into your commercial entity where now, you made your love your job.
Absolutely.
well, this has been a great conversation. I, wish you the best in growing what you have. It sounds like your passion is still so strong, and that's going to take you very, very far. And, it's been a pleasure to share that passion with a car person. And we really appreciate you taking the stop here at Sonoma Raceway on your road trip back up to the north. So thanks for stopping by. Thanks for joining us on the podcast.
Yeah, we wish you a ton of luck with the Northwest Exotic Show and wherever that might take you next. We expect big things, no pressure. But, you've been able to create something out of this glimmer of an idea and make it tangible and real, and that touches so many people. And we know there's more greatness still to come. So we thank you for sharing it with us, and we hope you'll keep us in mind and keep us informed about what you're up to ongoing.
Yeah. Well, thank you both for having me. And a major thank you to you because you were a major Kickstarter to this all. So
Well, just remember us little people when you're up doing big things, okay?
thanks, guys.
That's awesome.
This has been Cold Start. Thanks for listening.